America.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies.
We're going for two very different things.
What were you trying to sing?
The Team America theme song, duh.
I don't know what that is.
America, fuck yeah.
I don't know. I only know the America, fuck yeah.
So uncultured.
I was trying to sing...
America the Beautiful.
Yeah.
Two very different tones here.
Speaking of America the Beautiful.
Doing Billy the Kid this week, people. Rejoice.
Yeehaw. We're taking it back up to... You know what? The last time we did a servant... This relatively recent and from the U.S. was last 4th of July. When we did...
Calamity Jane?
Yep, Calamity Jane.
Well, you know we're back with another cowboy.
Yep. As is our tradition for 4th of July. You know, we gotta just... We gotta just do America, fuck yeah. Gotta pick the most American servants we possibly can.
Except I think we're out of people from the old American West. So
nope.
Do we have
Geronimo.
You're right.
And I have not given up hope that they're gonna add Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Also, we still have Voyager to do, and that's pretty fucking American, I'm gonna be honest. Like, there's some stuff we could still do. But, yeah, besides Geronimo, I think that's the end of the Wild West characters. Which is unfortunate, because I do love me some Wild West. I did grow up on that stuff.
It feels weird as an American to lack representation.
Wait, no, actually, that's exactly the feeling. As Americans from America, we object to the fact that there are not enough Americans in this Japanese video game. My American privilege says there should be more of us. I expect Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid to be added. Also, Wild Bill Hitchcock. There's plenty more servants you could add. Anyways, with that being said... Coming back to a little bit more recent, we're looking at the 1860s to 1880s. This man died pretty young, age like 20, 21. You know, such is the lot of many of these Wild West outlaws who died going down in a blaze of glory. But Billy the Kid is one of the most dramatized and popular characters in American Western folklore. I mean, this is really the last era in American history that could count as folklore, right? Is characters like this, and he is one of our most notorious. The dude with the beavers in the South, what's his name? That would be another servant they could add.
Tom Sawyer?
No, actual person. Daniel...
I don't know.
Daniel something.
Radcliffe is British.
No. Okay, now I gotta look it up. Hold on.
I mean, if you needed to move away to something that's a little bit more mythologized in American culture that's not Wild West, I'm sure you could move into like the you could probably get some fun like anti-heroes and villains out of the American like the crime era from the roaring 50s.
Oh my god, could you imagine Al Capone? There's a One Piece character based off Al Capone. That would be great. Anyways, so Billy the Kid. Billy the Kid, born Henry McCarty, but also went by the name William H. Bonney, Henry Antrim, and Kid Antrim. He was, at the age of 15, orphaned, and was arrested for the first time at age 16 for stealing food in 1875. Within 2 weeks of this arrest, he had robbed a Chinese laundry, was arrested again, and then escaped, fleeing from New Mexico into Arizona, crossing federal lines, making him both an outlaw and a federal fugitive at the ripe age of 16. Less than 2 years later, he began to call himself William H. Bonney instead of Henry McCarty, probably because it sounded better. Later that same year, in 1877, he became a wanted man in Arizona Territory as well because he killed a blacksmith during a fight, and we would return to New Mexico Territory and join a group of cattle rustlers. Now, for those of you that don't know, cattle rustlers was a thing that happened in the American West, where essentially these gangs of outlaws and criminals would ride onto people's ranches and try to set loose a bunch of cows, drive them off into the wilds, and then go round them up later to sell them for a profit. And this led to a lot of cattle ranchers and such equipping themselves with a lot of guns. That will be important in this story later. So, he became pretty well known in this region because he joined the Regulators and was part of the Lincoln County War the year after in 1878. And eventually, him and some other people from this gang were charged with 3 killings, including the county sheriff, William J. Brady, and one of his deputies at the time. Throughout the next couple of years of his life, his notoriety grew in the Las Vegas Gazette and in the Sun from New York. Both magazines carried tales about his crimes, publicizing them to wide readership. Eventually, Sheriff Pat Garrett would capture him later that month as a result. In 1881, he was tried and convicted of Sheriff William J. Brady's murder and was sentenced to hang just a month later in that year. However, about, 2 days before May, right at the end of April, he escaped from jail, killed 2 deputies in the process, and managed to avoid capture for 2 more months. At this point, in hot pursuit of him, Sheriff Pat Garrett would shoot and kill him in Fort Sumner on July 14th of 1881, ending his life at the young age of 21. However, following his death, for decades, legends grew that he had survived. Numerous men claimed to be him, and he's become, like I said before, one of the most frequently dramatized characters in Old Western pop culture, with over 50 movies and TV series that he is the feature of. A little bit more on the specifics of his life. He was born to Irish Catholic parents in New York City. We don't have a date, but we do have a specific year, and he was baptized in St. Peter's Church. He had a younger brother named Joseph McCarty, born a few years later. His father died when he was pretty young, and so his mother moved herself and her sons to Indiana, where she met another man named William Antrim. They would then move to Wichita, Kansas, and a few years after that, she would marry Antrim at the Church of Santa Fe in New Mexico Territory, with the boys as witnesses. Pretty soon after that, they moved to New Mexico. Joseph, his younger brother, took Antrim's name, but McCarty's mother would die of tuberculosis, and then William Antrim would abandon the 2 McCarty boys, leaving them orphans. So he was only 14 when she died, orphaned at 15. A nice woman who owned a boarding house during this time in his life gave him room and board in exchange for work. But in 1875, he was caught stealing food and then stealing from the Chinese laundry, where he did take 2 pistols. Unfortunately, when he was trying to flee from these initial charges, he did go to his stepfather, but his stepfather eventually threw him out. And that's why he ended up leaving the New Mexico Territory and heading towards Arizona Territory. So, I mentioned he joined the cattle hustlers. That was not the first thing he did when he was in the Arizona Territory. He actually did try to work an honest job as a ranch hand, but he gambled his wages away in gaming houses, and unfortunately he became friends with a Scottish-born criminal named John R. Mackey, who was a member of the U.S. Cavalry, and the 2 men began stealing horses from local soldiers. At this point, when he was known as Kid Antrim because he looked so young. Then he started to call himself William H. Bonney when he wanted to look a little bit older. Then there was the altercation with the blacksmith, which led to him escaping and fleeing the Arizona Territory back to the New Mexico Territory. However, he took some horses with him, and he got into a little bit of another altercation on the way back with Apaches. Apaches is a Native American tribe in the area at the time. They took the horses that he had from him, and he was forced to walk into the settlement, where he would be taken in by a gang, essentially. So, no chance at straightening himself out. He was taken in by a gang, joined a group of cattle rustlers, and just from then on, it was not great, you know? He did try working as a cowboy for a businessman and rancher near Rio Felix, which was near the Pecos River, but him and his business partner were opponents of Irish-American businessmen who were trying to create an alliance, like economically and politically, and eventually Sheriff Brady would attach a pretty large worth to some of the property and livestock that one of the men was keeping. Bonnie would be put in charge of those horses, and well, you know. Well, Bonnie just had to shoot the sheriff, you know? The sheriff came for the horses.
He had to protect the horses.
He had to. So, he also participated famously in the Battle of Lincoln, which was fought by the Regulators, which was a group of about 60 men. And essentially, they stationed themselves in town amongst the buildings, you know, top of the roofs of the salons, near the bunkhouses. And essentially, they just sat there shooting people who came in, you know. They said, we want you to send a request for assistance and intervention, and it didn't work. A gunfight broke out, and unfortunately, during the gunfight, several people were killed, and a few people were killed by Bonnie, according to witnesses. So, Bonnie at the time, and the other survivors of the Battle of Lincoln, were near the Mescalero Indian Agency, but unfortunately, they were near the agency when the agency bookkeeper was murdered. And so all four were accused and indicted of murder, even though we don't actually know if they participated, because there's actually some evidence that says that the accountant had actually been murdered by a constable from the area, not by any of the four of them. Let's see. To be honest, there was, I mean, later that year in 1879, he also had another period where he was kind of going straight, not doing anything illegal. It seems like he kind of dipped in and out of participating in legal and illegal activities. So I don't know if he necessarily sought out illegal activities. It seemed more like he got caught up in them coincidentally or because of other actions he took. You know, like he gambled himself into debt, and then to get out of debt, he had to do something. Or, you know, he joined a particular gang, a gang helped him out, something like that. But it seems like just that initial rough start to life, the orphaning and the abandonment, and then those initial arrests really just compounded into a relatively short life of a relatively high amount of crime in comparison. So, I mean, I kind of feel bad for him. Like, he didn't really have a whole lot of advantages. And it seems like every time he was on track to get his life in order, something happened to drag him right back down into the mud. But at the same time, I mean,
there are some areas where it's like
he did choose to join some of these groups and some of these gangs, and he did participate in these murders and killings.
And he did have to shoot the sheriff.
Yeah. So it's a little bit of both, which I think is pretty interesting. He pleaded for clemency in Santa Fe with the governor at the time, sending him 4 letters in 3 months, right before he was convicted for Sheriff Brady's murder, because he didn't want to be executed, and I can understand that. Let's see. While he was on the run, the governor at the time placed a $500 bounty on his head, and about 2.5-3 months after his escape, I mentioned Sheriff Pat Garrett, the one who indicted him. He heard rumors that Bonnie was near Fort Sumner, so he left Lincoln with deputies in 1881 to head down to Fort Sumner and see if he could find Bonnie. So he was sitting in Pete Maxwell's house, who was supposedly a friend of Bonnie's, and around midnight they were sitting in the bedroom when Bonnie entered. According to one version of events, he entered the room. Bonnie didn't recognize Garrett because of the lighting, but he drew his revolver and backed away, saying, Quien es, which is Spanish for who is it? Recognizing Bonnie's voice, Garrett drew his revolver, fired twice, striking him in the chest, and once and missing him. Garrett's account doesn't say if he died instantly, but the coroner said it was Kid's body they examined, and they said it was Kid who died. Garrett, the sheriff, collected the reward for the bounty on his head. But, people didn't believe he died. Which I think is absolutely fascinating. Like, really interesting. I that's just one of those things where presumably it was a rumor, and
that happens a lot with people that are very, like...
Yeah.
Like, there's no way they died that way, kind of.
Yeah. In 2004, a group of researchers petitioned to exhume the remains of his mother to DNA test them against the remains of who is buried in his grave. But...
Bless you.
That request to exhume her body was not granted. And then, interestingly enough... in 2010, the governor of New Mexico at the time was given a request for a posthumous pardon for Bonnie for the murder of Sheriff William Brady, and it was to fulfill Governor Wallace's 1879 promise to Bonnie. Because Wallace had promised to Bonnie to get him off for that. So, as recently as 2010... people were asking the governor of New Mexico to pardon him.
At this point, it's a meme.
Yeah.
And honestly, I would go for it if I was governor of New Mexico, not gonna lie. That'd be a funny little goofy ceremony.
He made his decision on his last day in office, too, and I can't remember if he pardoned him or not.
He didn't.
He didn't?
No.
Okay. But he waited till his last day in office to make that decision. I remember that.
So this one's more recent for you in campaign, so I don't know if you remember the class or not.
Billy the Kid. Rider or Archer?
Archer.
Yeah.
But I do have some fun notes here regarding his class. You can go ahead and switch over and look at his design while I explain this to you if you'd like. Billy the Kid's class is Archer, but he's one of very few servants to qualify for a very, very, like, side class. Like, it's barely a class. There's no practical reason for it to ever come up.
Shooter?
Gunner,
yeah.
It's literally just him. So far, there's only 2 servants identified in that class, both of which we've I don't know if we covered the other one, but it's him and Akechi Mitsuhide are the only Gunner class servants that are currently known to be qualified.
See, I would have thought Calamity Jane would have been in that category.
You'd think, but the one we have Servant Universe associated, so that could just be out of the materials.
Can I say this is the coolest art of him?
It's very stylized.
Like, this is very...
To be, like, very old Western style.
Yeah. I mean, this stuff is, too. I like that they've kind of tried to preserve the sort of youthful face, because he was very young. All right. What do you got for me?
So, Billy the Kid is outwardly jovial and kind, being amongst the most affable servants you can interact with. However, inside he's cold and willing to kill at a moment's notice. If someone is going to get their hands dirty, he is more than willing to do the job. And there's points where there's a point in the story where a hard call isn't even asked to be made, and he immediately makes it to try killing somebody. Masters who end up seeing Billy, masters who Billy sees as an equal, and who view themselves as an equal to him, will eventually get to see the colder side to him. The one that's more openly a killer and doesn't really... When he's like that, he doesn't feel the need to maintain that sort of facade of just outward friendliness with them. So yeah, he's a little bit of an older servant, not launch, but year 1 if I'm not wrong.
I could tell. I do think Certainly, probably after we do Geronimo next, or probably when we do Geronimo next year. Remember how when we did a bunch of the really famous pirates, I did a little overview on the age of piracy?
Mm-hmm.
I'll probably do something similar about the Wild West, the American Wild West, when we do Geronimo next year. Just because we'll be rounding out the servants we actually have from that area of the world. And so I think, also, Geronimo is going to be pretty light, so putting it in there is going to be a good place to put it.
Yeah.
As a nice rounding out. Because I do feel like I could have put it in here because...
he is one of the most like famous faces of the Wild West.
He is. And it's pretty well known that essentially within about a decade and a half after his death, what was once the Wild West American frontier had become officially part of state-governed land, and people really cracked down on the people like him out there, the outlaws. And so it was pretty much the end of an era, much like we talked about how the end of the age of piracy it was only about 10, 15 years after.
Yeah, Wild West is another one of those ages that was very short but very mythologized.
Short-lived but very mythologized. So when we hit Geronimo, just so you all know in the comments, when we hit Geronimo, I'll do a bigger piece on the American Wild West. Yeah. Because I know someone's going to mention it in the comments. I probably know exactly who it's going to be, too. Like, I could probably name them, but I won't. I won't go naming names of people who like to call me out. But rest assured, there will be a piece on the American Wild West. It'll just likely be next year. Okay, I got some relationships.
Yep.
Geronimo. Hey, the blood-stained warrior makes his appearance. Let's go out camping in the wilderness again. I made a bean cup of coffee, didn't I? Wow, I never expected a hero with a lion's head. Outlaws like me start to die out, and people like him start showing up. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, doesn't matter to me. It's a bad thing. Oh, it's you, Robin. Why don't you quit using all that poison? It's bad for you. Gunpowder's the way to go nowadays. The flashier, the better, right? Oh, come on, you stubborn lunkhead. Then, whoa, a scary nurse makes her appearance. Don't you think you should be a little more careful with your gun? No, because she's curing you. Yeah, because Billy the Kid just showed up in campaign for us.
So, Billy here is exactly what you'd expect in combat. His primary means of fighting is his revolver that he nicknamed the Thunderer.
Mm-hmm.
If he sees an opponent reaching for their weapon, he is more than capable of getting to his first, and at any given moment, taking a shot with unnaturally good accuracy.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Independent action, mage resistance, riding, so that's marksmanship. That's the general shooting techniques. Quick draw, mind's eye, fake, natural talent to sense and avoid danger based on life experience. And then we've got our noble phantasm. It is called Thunderer.
Yes, so his noble phantasm is Thunderer. Part of that, though, is although he is summoned with a gun, it's not the gun that's the noble
shit,
phantasm.
I've used this in campaign.
You have. It's not the gun that's the noble phantasm, rather it's the concept of him using a gun. He can fire guns farther and more accurately than anyone else normally could, and his 3 shots can be made consecutively in his opponent's vital points.
I remember this now.
Leonardo da Vinci actually at one point notes that he doesn't have to have the same restriction, or he doesn't have the same restrictions on noble phantasm weapons that most servants have, and so she went out of her way to help upgrade his gun, as making the gun stronger and more modern will alone increase Billy's output and power.
Yeah, okay, because we recently finished E Pluribus Unum, right?
Mm-hmm.
Unum. And Billy the Kid was one of the servants I specifically wanted. Because Billy the Kid was really useful, I remember, in campaign. I don't know if he is in FGO, but he was really useful in campaign.
There's a funny moment in the story where Musashi and Billy see each other, and Musashi reaches for her sword and Billy reaches for his gun, and they almost get into a sun versus katana duel.
Sun versus katana?
Gun versus katana.
So Shimao Don is the character illustrator for Leonidas I, Phantom of the Opera, Billy the Kid, Irisfield Dress of Heaven, Nitochrist, Yang Qing, Black Irie, and Nido Alter.
Man, that artist did like a lot of early servants and disappeared until very recently.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. So, we only have the one.
Yup.
Oh, and it's old, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not year 1, but...
It might be year 1, but it's not launch.
Yeah. I can kind of tell by the way the sprite moves.
It's a little cleaner than Sanson, but not as Not by much.
It's pretty jagged. I don't know. He's moving pretty jagged. He's also doesn't have a whole lot of,
No.
You know.
Right now, it's literally just pew, 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 pew.
Yeah. On his knees, jump back, up top. I do like the little tricks. That's pretty cool.
I mean, at the very minimum, he's more animated and more expressive
Yeah.
than most of the
Ooh,
servants
tumbleweeds.
we've seen in this era.
I do love me some tumbleweeds. That's sad. Man, now I'm just disappointed.
I'm getting you with all these like old ass NPs lately.
It sucks too, because I feel Billy. I grew up on the Old West stories. You know, like my dad was a huge fan of Old West fiction and Old West movies and TVs and stories. So like, obviously, I grew up having them around the house a lot. Like, I grew up watching like Bonanza and shit. You know. In fact, I had to watch Bonanza recently for a class assignment. It does not hold up. I mean, it's funny, but it's racist as all hell. Like, so bad. But yeah. So I grew up on it. I'm a little disappointed we don't have more. But I was also a little disappointed at Calamity Jane because it was a little servant verse and not really, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Geronimo will do better next year. I can see you shaking your head, but I'm going to choose to ignore that. All right, let's see. Oh, we definitely have CEs. All right, baseball. Okay, that's actually adorable. Very cute. I expect there to be CEs. Oh, yeah, there's some. Little extra. Oh, yeah, I saw that. Okay, there is some extra art of him. Oh, 2017. Oh, Billy the Kid. That's Pocky. Adorable. Is that...
That's Phantom, I think, actually, not Elmoy.
Okay.
I know you thought it was Elmoy. That's Phantom. I'm
No,
sure.
it's Phantom. It's the red eyes. You're right. And there's Leonidas in the corner. That's adorable. Okay. All right. All right. Let's see what we got. Extolling the revolver. Oh. Interesting. Huh? You're looking for a kid named Billy? He's just a sneaky, third-rate showman. The fastest gun in the West? Man, don't tell me you're spreading that stupid rumor. He's just a petty thug. A bounty hunter with such a beautiful pistol shouldn't be wasting time on a guy like that. He's just a little brat. Are you going to beat the crap out of him? Oh, fine. I'll tell you where he is. It's okay. Calm down, calm down. There. We'll make a trade. Show me that gun. Wow, I've never seen such a shiny gun in the whole Wild West. It's shiny, but it ain't worth anything else, huh? What, you want me to tell you now that I've seen the gun? Sure. Lean in close so I can whisper it to you. Listen, Billy is. He's right behind you. I ain't lying. You spun around, so now I'm standing behind you. By the way, my gun's already drawn. Sure you don't want to draw that shiny pistol of yours? Glorious. Alright, silver bullet. A silver bullet gifted as a good luck charm. It's probably effective against werewolves. Or perhaps you can get a saint to bless it to make it even more powerful. Either way, it's best to handle with care. A silver bullet may be able to defeat monsters, but it cannot defeat humans. Interesting. Hey!
With Coulter there.
I know 3 people in this art now. I don't know that person yet, I don't think.
You don't know the person below him either.
Isn't that Rama?
That's Rama, the other person. That one. Is that Billy?
It's Billy the Kid.
Oh, sorry, I thought that was someone else. No,
It's
you're right.
literally Billy the
It's
Kid.
Billy the Kid. His eyes aren't crazy enough to be who I thought it was.
It's literally Billy the Kid. Let's go. Cunning tricksters run amok through the underworld. In a place where violence rules over everything, there's a quartet of men who are untouchable. Never forget that this quartet is to be feared. Remember them, like a nightmare. Never forget their names, their legend. See, that's almost mafia themed with the, the whole black suits and everything. I even, Rama's even wearing the pinstripes. All right. Sunset Jam. I know none of those people.
Other than Billy.
Yep, so I'm gonna come back to that, I'm sure.
Yep.
I do know... No, I don't. I don't know this person.
No,
but there's Billy in the back.
It's not even a C really focused on him, though.
No. But they're playing Splatoon.
Yeah.
But this will come back up whenever we do this character, which I think is hopefully relatively soon.
Hopefully we'll get to some of them soon.
Yeah. All right. Heroic Spirit Dream Portrait. They're in India.
Finger gun.
They're in India. Yuga Kshetra.
Yep. That's India.
Yep. That's it. That's it.
2 short ones in a row.
Oh boy. It's almost like the world is ending.
Well,
it's okay. We have 11 more lives to get it right. We'll see you next time. Like, comment, subscribe.